Hello and welcome to Rex Kwando Boxing. No, it's myself and Britton Harden, host of the Cool Out here on the TYT Network. Britton, good to see you once again.
I need a volunteer.
This guy. All right, so let's talk about Marquez and Bradley. Big fight this weekend. We were talking before we went on. I simply have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know if Marquez is going to catch him with his brilliant counterpunching or if the WBO welterweight champion, Timothy Bradley, is actually going to not only show up, because he did against Ruslan Provodnikov, one of the toughest fights I've ever seen Bradley in. By far the toughest.
Definitely the toughest.
But is he going to beat Marquez to the punch? Is he going to be able to outbox him, get in, get out, and not be susceptible to counters? Anyone is, but is he going to get hit with those counters?
Well, let's first address this. Doesn't it feel good not to know what's going to happen in a boxing match?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, going into any boxing match, you know, there's that unpredictability, you know, the puncher's chance, but 9 times out of 10, you can pretty much weigh the odds and say, this guy's going to win because of X, Y, and Z. These guys stack up so evenly that we don't know who is going to win.
But hang on. You say that evenly.
Yeah.
We had that feeling when Timothy Bradley a few years back fought Devin Alexander, and it was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. One of the most disappointing by far because of the fanfare. It seems like this is getting some fanfare in the boxing world, but many people, including myself, I'll throw my hat into that ring, are saying that this is not worthy of a pay-per-view. I think it should be, you know, an HBO, boxing after dark, Saturday night fight, where, you know, you got some buddies, you're having a brew, maybe a few, and you're just hanging. I mean, is this worthy of a pay-per-view fight?
Well, I mean, like I said before, last time we addressed this issue, you definitely have to consider it, considering who they both beat in their last fights. You know, they both beat Manny Pacquiao in their last fights. Manny Pacquiao is one of the biggest stars in, I'd say, boxing history.
Yeah.
So I think that just those victories alone puts them on that stage to at least have an opportunity to see what kind of fans they can draw in, you know, in Vegas. So.
Aside from when Marquez fought Floyd Mayweather, when has he put out a bad performance, if ever, really?
You're right.
Yeah.
He's never put out a bad performance. You know, he just doesn't have an exciting style. You know, for the casual boxing fan, for the casual watcher, you're not going to walk off the strip in Vegas to go watch a Juan Ma fight. You know, he fights very technical. He fights behind the jab. He fights at his own pace, fairly slow. You know, for the person who loves boxing, they love to see that kind of patience. They love to see that kind of style. Before the fanfare that you'd like to see somebody just getting knocked out, he doesn't always present that fight. Usually his opponent brings that fight to him.
If you want, and I'm talking, I guess, to the viewers, if you want the fanfare and you want to see for the casual boxing fan, you want to see a pretty hard-nosed fight. Ruslan Provodnikov and Mike Alvarez are going to be fighting very, very soon, so check that out as well. Now, getting back to this fight, you talked about the unpredictability of this very fight. Here's the one thing for me that I've noticed. Timothy Bradley, he beat Provodnikov, yet there is still this limited respect that is being indebted to him, and he just doesn't get it at all. He doesn't get any sort of respect.
You know, I think that he is also a fighter who doesn't necessarily have an exciting style, because when you think about Bradley, what kind of fighter would you consider him? You know, you would consider Floyd Mayweather.
In what way do you mean?
I'm saying, in what area does he shine? There's certain fighters who he has a good jab, or he's fast, he's strong, he's big.
Yeah.
You know, he's a pressure fighter. What is his style?
I mean, can't the casual boxing fan, their opinion doesn't seem like, look, it matters. Every opinion matters. But when we're talking about the casual boxing fan, they want to see the Alvarez Provodnikov. They want to see the Alvarez Rios, when really it's more than that. This is why they call it the sweet science.
Exactly. So what you're going to see in this fight, which makes it so unpredictable and such a good fight that people aren't necessarily giving it the attention that it deserves, you're seeing two men who are going to get in the ring, and they both have the ability to switch their style. They can bring it. They can box. They're both smart. They both have very good skill, and they both have shown the ability to be very vulnerable in the ring. Juan Manuel Marquez has the ability that in mid-punch, if he sees that his opponent is moving in a certain direction, he will make slight adjustments and land the punch that he needs to land to hurt you when he, where he needs to. And I said that he displayed this in the Juan Diaz fight, where there was a few times where Juan Diaz would start to time his jab coming in, because Juan Diaz was being the bull, which we knew him for. The baby bull, which we knew him for. He's coming in, and how do you stop a fighter that's coming directly at you? You hit him with a stiff jab. He realized that Juan was hitting him with this jab, so he tried to come under it. And there was a few times where Juan Ma would throw the jab, and he noticed that he was ducking it, and midway through he would bring it back just enough to land an uppercut. And those are the punches that ultimately were his demise. He knocked him out with a combination ending with an uppercut. So that is a quality that not a lot of fighters have, which is why you always have to give him the technical, advantage whenever he's fighting anybody.
The judges, which we need to talk about more and more in the year 2013. Robert Hoyle, Patricia Morse-Jarman, those two are from Vegas, and Glenn Feldman. Those are your three judges. Here's the one other thing for Bradley. Let's go back to him for just a moment. If he beats Juan Manuel Marquez, who is 10 years older than Bradley, won't most people say, you know what, Marquez was just riding high? He gave Manny Pacquiao the worst knockout ever, the worst loss of his career, where he was out cold for a good 2 minutes, flat, his face flat on the ring, on the canvas. You know what? Bradley doesn't even deserve it. You know why? Because Marquez was riding high, and now he's 10 years older, he's 40, he's on the downslope of his career. I mean, it's a good fight. I personally think it would be a good win for Bradley, especially when a guy is coming off that sort of win. But even if he wins, it seems like he won't get the sort of respect.
And you can almost see a trend in boxing where these really good boxers aren't being appreciated as much as they should probably. All this guy does is win. And I'm not the biggest Tim Bradley fan, but
Why is that?
I'm not the biggest Tim Bradley fan because I just wasn't sold on, I wasn't sold on a lot of his victories. I thought that the Devin Alexander, be it that wasn't, fully his fault, I felt like the Devin Alexander fight was going to catapult either one of them into this sort of atmosphere.
Agreed.
And because the fight just didn't come off the way it was supposed to, Bradley won the fight, and it did catapult him here, but what did he how did he really get that victory? And then
Alexander quit.
He quit, right? So I mean, it wasn't like it was that was supposed to be
the rising stars of boxing,
right? A career-defining victory for him or Devin Alexander, and I don't feel like it was either for either man.
No, it wasn't.
The Pacquiao fight was, come on.
I know he didn't win.
I gave him 4 or 5 rounds.
I think that's generous. By the way, Marquez, 55-6-1. 40 knockouts. As I said, he is 40 years old. He's going for a title in 5 different weight classes, so that's also notable. $6 million is going to be his payday. For Bradley, $4.1 million. He is the undefeated fighter, the WBO welterweight champ, 30-0, 12 knockouts. Let me get a prediction out of you. Who do you think and why?
Conventional wisdom tells me to go with Juan Manuel Marquez, so I'm going to go with Juan Manuel Marquez because he's way more technical.
Final answer.
Juan Manuel Marquez, final answer.
Okay, here's my thinking. Juan Manuel Marquez will beat him.
Yeah.
He's gonna land those counter punches like crazy. He's gonna win the end of rounds. I think he beats Timothy Bradley on Saturday night at the Thomas & Mack Center.
How? In what fashion?
It's gonna be a decision. I don't think he knocks out Timothy Bradley. Timothy Bradley doesn't get knocked out.
Yeah,
he's just not a guy that gets knocked out.
He does get knocked out. He was knocked out against Provodnikov. He just stayed on his feet.
But his feet somehow were there. Yeah. And you know what? That's why he won 5% more fans, maybe, because he was out on his feet. His legs were wobbly. And yet he still survived the fight. Amazing.